big agenda. Okay, everybody want to rise for the pledge? Pledge allegiance. Please remain standing for a moment of silence for any members who might have lost since we last met, and our servicemen and women serving overseas. Thank you. Please be seated. Well, thank you everybody for coming. I know we have people coming in, so just come in. Please sit down. I want to make a motion tonight to suspend all regular business tonight. The minutes, financial report, business agents, so we can put on a presentation to address the members' inquiries regarding the investigation of John Ulrich and Larry DeBellis. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay. Just so you know, tonight we have the two attorneys that were directly involved with the investigation of John Ulrich and Larry DeBellis. And they will put on slides and talking to you everything they went through to find, during the investigation to find out what happened, the allegations, and tonight both of them will speak to you in detail all the facts uncovered during the investigation. I'm going to start it off with one event. About a year ago, I was going over the charge card in my office, and I saw a charge for Home Depot under John Ulrich's name. I called up John. I said, John, what's it for? Home Depot. He says, I bought a generator. Okay, why'd you buy a generator? Well, I bought a generator because, we needed a generator because ours broke, which it did. Okay, generator broke. I said, okay, we've used the RV before to bump up the rat. That's what he said we needed it for. I said, okay, I need the generator and the receipt. He said, okay. About a week and a half later, I happened to see him in the winter coat. He threw the generator in the back of my car. I said, okay, I just need a receipt. Went to the office, threw the generator in my office. It's still in my office. About a couple days after that, it was about a week after that, after I got the generator, I was still waiting for the receipt. Jim Scarpati walked in my office. He's the controller in our office, if you don't know who he is. He asked me a check. The amount at the Home Depot was $241.19. Okay? He says, here's a check. I said, what's that? He says, it's from John. He says, you're saying you needed a receipt, so he's just going to donate $245 to the generator. So I go, until that point, I believe John. Okay? I believed him. And I said, wait a second. What, a generator from our union charge card, and I wants to pay for it out of his money, something don't sit right. So I went to Home Depot. Jimmy, if you could put the slide up, please. To get the receipt from Home Depot. I know it's hard to see. I'm just going to name off a few of the items that are on there. A hinge, three-way switch, chrome heavy-duty pole socket, joint compound, dimmer switches, tie and belt rack. It totaled $331.18. He paid $90 cash, leaving $241.18, which was on our charge card. So he lied, and he tried to cover it up with that check he brought in. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the attorneys now to run through what happened with all the joint counsel, how they came to their conclusion. And first I'm going to introduce Roland Acevedo, who headed that investigation when we first started. And this is Roland Acevedo there. And just so you know, I asked Roland to say a few words. I know there was comments about Roland's past, and I asked Roland to address it, and he will. He said, but this man right here is the best man for the job. He's done it a long time, and he's really good at it. So as of right now, I'd like to turn it over to Roland Acevedo. Please pay attention and listen. Thank you.
So good evening. As Ed just told you, my name's Roland Acevedo. I'm an attorney. I do lots of different things. I'll tell you what I do in a little bit, but I just want to make sure, because I'm down here now at eye level instead of up there on the podium, that everybody can see and hear me. You okay in the back there?
Yeah.
Good. Do I need to shout louder? You got me. Okay. So, as Ed told you, I was retained by the local to conduct an investigation into alleged misconduct involving John. I've done a lot of investigations. I'll tell you about some of them in a few minutes. Now, my job here today is real simple because I don't have any horse in this race. What I do is I investigate things however they come to me. I lay out the evidence, and then whoever's in charge, I let them to decide what they want to do. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to lay out some of the evidence for you, so you're going to be able to see it with your own two eyes. You'll see things up on that screen. You're going to make your own decisions. My job is not to persuade you. My job is to do what I do every day in court. And in fact, I spent my whole day today on trial. What I do is I show people things in black and white, and then they can make their own decisions. Now, everybody here, I'm sure, is familiar with TV shows involving attorneys and crime, right? They're really, really popular. So if you're as old as me, you remember Perry Mason. If you're a younger group, and a lot of you guys are younger, you probably watch Law and Order. So in all of these shows, it's the same players. It's the judge or the arbitrator who decides, what issues are going on. It's the attorneys for both sides. In the criminal defense shows on TV, it's the prosecutor and defense attorneys like me. And then there's the most crucial player in the process. And that most crucial player in the process is the jury. In our American system of justice, the jury has a unique role, and let me tell you why. It's the jury and the jury alone that looks at the evidence and decides the facts. Now, juries are uniquely qualified to do that, and let me tell you why. Because they have zero legal training. In a courtroom, we're not interested in the law. We're interested in people deciding what the truth is and what the truth isn't. And how do jurors do that? Real simple. They use their common sense and their everyday life experience based on what they see and hear. So tonight, you're going to fill that role. You're going to be the jury for the evidence that I'm going to present, and you alone are going to decide what you believe and what you don't believe. I don't care what you believe, quite frankly. That's up to you. It's the same thing if we were in a courtroom. I present, the jury decides. So tonight I'll be presenting. You're going to be making the big decision, so pay attention because it's on you, it's not on me. All right? Now, Ed just mentioned to you that before I start with the evidence, I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. I'm not a guy that likes to talk about myself, okay? But there was some allegation made about me that I think that I should address, at least somewhat, so you get a clearer view of who I am and what I do. Now, back on August 8, 2016, a couple of members filed a pretty lengthy submission, 15 or so pages, and they tried to bring charges against Ed and a few other people on the executive board. In that August 8th submission, there was an allegation about me. And that allegation was that the local was nuts to hire me because I had a criminal conviction for armed robbery, I had a shootout with the police, and I had done time in jail. So, that kind of stuff in my life is really commonplace and it's not a secret. So I don't really have to defend myself. I'm going to tell you what they didn't tell you, okay? Approximately, I don't know, I'm in my 60s, so 45 years ago, I was a younger guy, and I grew up in pretty tough neighborhoods throughout New York City, and in those neighborhoods, drugs were like commonplace. And they were rampant. And most people in my neighborhood, including me, got hooked on drugs. It was just part of the culture. It was pretty much common. So to support a drug habit, you're not going to go to work every day like you guys, 9 to 5. So I had turned to crime to support the drug habit, just like me and all my homies. Now, I wasn't particularly good at crime. I was one of those guys who did something and almost got caught every single time. So in my particular case, I did a couple of crimes, and almost every case I got caught. On a couple of occasions I got caught, I admitted my guilt, I went to jail, and I did some time. Now, I'm not one of these guys that you see on TV that says I was mistaken identity. I'm one of the guys they picked out. I was innocent. I did all of this time unjustly. In my case, the system got it exactly right. I did something wrong. They convicted me. I went to jail. So that's no mystery. Now, prison, and I don't have to tell you this because this is not one of those kind of presentations. Prison isn't Club Med, okay? I didn't particularly enjoy it, but it definitely saved my life for a couple of reasons. Number one, it probably prevented me or stopped me from getting AIDS or getting shot and killed like most of my friends. I used to keep a list in my drawer of all my friends that had died. When the list got to 40 people, I tore it up because it was getting too depressing. So prison really probably saved my life. But two other things became really more important in that whole process. One, it got me sober because it removed me from that drug culture. And two, most thankfully, it gave me an education. When I went to prison, I was a high school dropout. I came out of prison with an associate degree. From there, I got a bachelor's, a master's in social work, and a law degree. So I went to law school here in New York. I went to Fordham, which is a wonderful Jesuit institution, which has a lot of the principles I believe in. And when I graduated from Fordham, let me tell you what I did, because it's important with respect to who I am. The very first job out of law school was a federal clerkship. And if you don't know lawyers, you don't really know what a federal clerkship is. But a federal clerkship is, I was a guy who worked for a woman judge in Manhattan, a federal judge appointed by Clinton. And what I did was I advised her, I did her writing, I did her research. I was kind of like a right-hand man. Now, that judge knew all about my background. And I don't have to tell you that most judges are conservative in this country. So that judge hired me, despite knowing my background, because I would think that she thought that I had excellent character because I overcame tremendous adversity. Now, that clerkship is the key to the legal kingdom. When you graduate with a federal clerkship or you complete a federal clerkship, you can work anywhere you want in the United States. People were throwing money at me to come to their firms. I didn't do any of that. I went and I did public interest work in the South Bronx, and then later I decided to work in this world with the Teamsters. Why? There's lots of people in my family with Teamsters, including my dad and lots of my uncles. Now, to become an attorney, and this is important, I don't want to give you too much of a civics exercise tonight, you have to do three things. And one of these things is extremely important. One, you have to go to an accredited law school like Fordham. You have to graduate. You have to take the bar exam as the second thing. It's a tough test, 2 days. And the third thing you have to do, which is really significant here, is you have to get past what they call the character committee. So the character committee is a bunch of lawyers, conservative white guys generally, who interview you and ask you about your background, ask you to explain yourself. Needless to say, my interview was a little longer than most people's interviews. So the character committee approved me. They decided that I had the requisite, and the test is present good moral character to be trusted to be an attorney. So I've overcome a lot of hurdles. The character committee, a federal judge, lots of other judges. To be here today, to be an attorney, to practice, despite my background. So the fact that I have a conviction doesn't really say much about me, in my opinion. The fact that I overcome that conviction, I think, speaks volumes about me. So whoever posted that garbage about me, what they didn't post was all the other stuff I did since then to overcome. Now, there may be people in this room, I don't know and I don't want to know, who have had similar experiences. But if not, I guarantee you, there's dozens of people in this room who know people in their families, neighbors down the block, buddies from high school, who had similar experiences or worse, who overcame worse. And I'm sure all of those people you know, you view them in high esteem because you say if they could overcome that, then that speaks a lot about their character. That's a testament to their character. So when people posted stuff about me in that letter and on the internet, they only gave you like 5% of me. They didn't give you the other 95%, which I'm giving you today. So I want to put all of that in context before I get into this evidence that I'm about to present. Now, I've been working with the Teamsters since about 1998. Since 1999, I've been working with the International all over this country. I work with a number of locals throughout the New York metropolitan area. Since 1999, I have probably been involved in at least 90% of every IRB investigation that resulted in a charge against the Teamster. I still do investigations that have been initiated by the IRB and then handed off to the Teamsters. So that's what I do, generally. I have been involved in all 4 IRB investigations at this local. The 2 involving Mr. Amori, the 1 involving Joe Vita, and the last one involving Joe Wojciechowski. Okay? I'm the guy who prosecuted the Wojciechowski case, by the way. So I'm not a guy that's particularly loved around this local. However, if there's ever a guy who's qualified to do an investigation, if there's ever a guy whose name's on the short list, it's me. It's me because I've done 4 other ones right here. And all of them didn't necessarily come out the way the local wanted, but in all of them I believe that the truth somewhat came out. So when I was asked to do the investigation involving John Ulrich, I said I would do it, and I'm going to show you tonight what I found. And then you could weigh that particular documents and evidence on your own. So in January 2016, I was asked to investigate whether or not Mr. Ulrich improperly amended a collective bargaining agreement that the local had with a company called Phoenix Lobo. Now that amendment was done in secret, no question, I'll show you in a few minutes. That amendment cost the health fund over $600,000 in contributions. The company that had its contract amended was the same company where John's estranged wife worked and the same company where his son worked. You can draw whatever conclusions you want about that. Now, I also learned as part of the investigation that started with that contract amendment that John also entered into a participation agreement with the same employer. And that participation agreement brought between 200 and 300 non-union members into your fund at discounted rates, and those non-union members included the owner's family. 2 other things I stumbled upon. So I just came in the door looking for one thing, the contract amendment, but as always the case, I stumble upon other things. I found out that John was embezzling by using his union credit card, and Ed just gave you one example, which I'll go over many more. The other thing I learned, the 4th thing I learned, was that Mr. Ulrich faked an injury in the summer of 2015. He claimed that he had fell in his house and broke his leg and his ankle. And because he had broken his leg and ankle, he spent the next 4 months on his boat in the Hudson River. Okay? My investigation revealed he didn't break his ankle and he didn't break his leg. he merely decided to take off so we could collect salary on your dime. So let's start. Can you put up charging party 1? There it is. So my investigation revealed that in April 2014, the local entered into a contract with Lobo. You see that number up there? April 2014. All right? And then you'll see Lay Farm Trucking, Windmill, Distributing. That company is all one and of the same. It's known as Phoenix Lobo. That's how I'll refer to it in my presentation tonight. So this contract was entered into. The local approved it. The members who worked there ratified it. It was approved. Now the contract, and we could go through it, but I don't see the point, but down this left-hand side, those are all the pages. The contract's 32 pages long. The contract is extremely well done. It was drafted primarily by an attorney, probably many of you know, Barry Levy, very capable, very smart. And the contract contained a number of things that you should know about. Let me tell you what they are. Like all of your contracts, this contract required Phoenix to make contributions to the health fund. That can be found at Charging Party 20. So there it is. Upon ratification, the employer was supposed to pay $8.58 per member per month. But that's not a mystery to you because all your contracts have contributions for health funds. Now, the second thing that's key in this contract is on Charging Party 28. Now, in Charging Party 28, there's this Article 38. You'll see the subtitle. It says, Successes and Assigns Clause. What is that? That's legal garbage for whoever takes over this company. So if Phoenix sells out to somebody, and somebody takes over Phoenix, the successor, the new boss, has to be bound or will be bound by the same terms in this contract. And you could see that it's pretty much a nice paragraph there. Significant legal language, certainly enough to protect the union and its members. Now, soon after this contract was approved by you, the members who voted for it, the ones that worked at Phoenix, November 21st, 2014, just a couple of months after April, this Phoenix contract was modified, amended, Charging Party 33. Go to the top. So that's the first page of the amendment. And go to the next page, please, Jim. And that's the second page. So down here, you can see that John Ulrich signed it on behalf of the local. Much smaller, much less complex than that 32-page contract you saw a few minutes ago. But let me tell you what the key is here, okay? You see this right here? It says, due to the influx of over 350 new management participants, the new healthcare rate will be $500 per month. So John unilaterally reduced the number from $858 a month to $500 a month. That, in case you're not good at math, is a whopping 42% decrease. Now, Ulrich testified during this investigation. I put him under oath. He had a lawyer present. I have that transcript, okay? And I'll tell you what he said. He said that he drafted this amendment on his own. He did it totally on his own. The local's lawyer and the fund's attorney didn't know anything about it. He didn't consult them. They didn't have any input. According to Ulrich, no one approved this amendment before it was signed. Now, Ulrich testified, under oath again, that he presented it, or that he did not present it, to the executive board, to the health fund trustees, or to the membership. Now, under your bylaws, the membership has to vote to approve a modification of a collective bargaining agreement. Now, Ulrich testified, although he never presented it to the E-Board, he said he informed the local's president, Ed Weber, about it. Weber also testified during this investigation, and he was placed under oath too, just like I place everybody else under oath. And I ask the same tough questions to everybody. Doesn't matter to me who they are. Now, Weber testified that Ulrich never told him about this amendment, and neither the E-Board nor the Health Fund trustees voted to approve it. Weber testified that he learned about the reduction in contributions. When he learned about it, he asked the local's attorney, Barry Levy, who drafted the contract, if Levy was aware of the reduction, and Barry Levy told him no. Weber also said that Levy then asked him, why would John do that? So even Barry Levy was baffled. Now, Ulrich testified that he amended the Phoenix contract and lowered the benefits to secure the successes and assigns clause and to save jobs. But I just showed you that the successes and assigns clause is already in the original contract. So why would you need to amend it? And even if you wanted to amend it, show me where in the agreement you have better language. It's not in there because it doesn't exist. Black and white, your own two eyes, you can see it. Okay? Now, I also deposed Andre Gonzalez. If you don't know who he is, he's a guy who does audits for the Health Fund. So he determines, if the Health Fund is owes money. Now, Andre testified that in August 2015, he noticed something strange during his audit. He noticed the contributions had been reduced from $858 to $500. Gonzalez said that he called Ed Weber to have a conversation with him, and he said based on his conversation with Ed Weber, Ed clearly didn't know about the reduction. Later in August, Gonzalez said he had a conversation with Ed at a delinquency meeting of the Health Fund, and that during that conversation, Weber instructed him to go after Phoenix for the full amount, the $858. According to Gonzalez, and this is key, guys, the change in that contribution rate cost your health fund $606,784 in 1 year. That's a whopping more than $500,000. Now, during his deposition, Ulrich claimed that Weber and others at the local knew about the amendment. I submit to you that his own emails show you that isn't the case. 35, please. So this is an email that John Ulrich sent to a number of people. He sent it to Ed Weber, Joe Viter, and Walter Kane, the Health Fund attorney. It's dated July 16th. You see it up there, 2015. There's no question it came from John. How do I know that? Because I'm really good at solving mysteries. Watch this one. John U, IBT812@gmail.com. You think it came from him? Okay. So he sends this email, and let me tell you what he says in the email. All right? The fourth paragraph. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's remember before all of this. So he said, I just had to deal with Phoenix, making sure people were not laid off. Now, John testified that in this email, he was talking about the amendment to the contract. So he admitted, oh yeah, this email's about that in part. Now, here's the key. The key is at the end of this, he says, no one else got involved. You see that? No one else got involved. So how could people have known if no one else got involved? Impossible. It doesn't fly in the face of the email. Now, the very next paragraph says, it was done to preserve both the PIA with the strongest successor language possible. But you've already seen that the original contract had a successor and assigns clause. So that isn't true either, I submit. All right? Now, he also says in this line here that has the little arrow, that one there. Here it is. So he says also, I did communicate this to Eddie, But Eddie had his own health issues and, well, may not have understood with all going on, and it was a stressful time. So even he kind of backs off his statement that Eddie knew. He says, well, I told Eddie, but Eddie may not have understood. Now, during the investigation, I also learned that second part I told you about in the beginning, that John also entered into a participation agreement with the same employer. Can you pull up Charging Party 37? So this is the participation agreement, and let me tell you what it is. It was done on June 1st, 2015, and it was done again with the same employer whose contract was amended, Phoenix. Now, Ulrich testified on the oath that he himself negotiated this participation agreement and that he himself drafted it. According to Ulrich, this participation agreement brought management and non-union personnel into your health fund. When Ulrich was asked if the agreement was ever presented to the health fund trustees, he said he couldn't recall. Ulrich testified, however, that the executive board was apprised of this agreement, but he didn't know if the discussion was on the record. The reason he said that, gentlemen, is because he knew that I would pull the minutes. And I did pull the minutes, and none of the minutes reflected any discussion about this participation agreement because it was never approved by the executive board or the health fund. Now, this agreement added, according to Ulrich, 200 people to the health fund. Among the people who received health benefits, the same health benefits that this union bargains strongly for you to get, were the owner of the company, his wife, and his son. Now, I told you before that Ulrich's estranged wife worked for the company. She was also covered under the agreement. Now, Ulrich, to his credit, he acknowledged that adding hundreds of people to the health fund could put the health fund at risk. Certainly it could. There was a premature baby, open heart surgery, some kind of chronic illness. It could cost the fund a significant amount of money. Weber testified that he never saw this agreement before it was signed by Ulrich and the owner of the company. According to Ed Weber, the executive board and the health fund never discussed this participation agreement. Weber testified that the agreement added approximately 200 to 300 people to the health fund, and it could have put the health fund at significant risk. Now, according to Ed Weber, people added to the health fund paid $500 per month for benefits, as opposed to the $858 that was in the original collective bargaining agreement. Mr. Weber said that $500 was significantly less than the rates charged in the industry for health care for this kind of coverage, which ranged from between $850 to $1,100 a month. I then started broadening my investigation, and I began to look at Ulrich's charges on his union credit card. Now, why do I say that? Probably in 70% of all the investigations I do in the country, if there's a problem, it's usually tied to the union officer's credit card. So it was a natural place for me to look. And by the way, I wouldn't have looked. I would not have looked and wasted my time if I didn't find other stuff. It was the other stuff and the knowledge about the Home Depot receipt that triggered my curiosity. So the evidence that I found revealed that between November 2013 and December 2015, Ulrich caused the union to pay personal expenses on his union credit card. Why don't we pull up Charging Party 40? Now that's the first page. Can you go to the top? Is there a name on it? See up there, Ulrich? So this is the first page of the statement, the charging statement for that period. And it's a lengthy statement. So it spans it's from 40 to 54, so 14 or 15 pages of credit card charges. So the charge that Ed just mentioned to you about Home Depot. That occurred on November 15, 2015, and it was at $241.90. So there it is. See that? $241.18 it says up there, so I'm a penny off. So there's the Home Depot charge. It was made on Ulrich's card. Ed told you what the background was about the generator and all of that stuff, right? So the local never got a receipt from Ulrich until Ed went to Home Depot and picked up the receipt on his own. So can you go to charging party 55, please? So this is the check. This is the check that Ulrich tendered to the local to pay for that generator. You can't see what's blocked out here because we tried to keep, some of the private info private. But the check was for $245. And down in this corner where it's blocked out some banking information, it said donation. So why in the world, you have to ask yourself, would he donate $245 to the local? It just does not make sense. Now, why don't we go to charging party 56. So that's the receipt. Can you pull it up a little more, Jim? You can't see it, but if you want to see it in person, I have a hard copy. You can come up afterwards. But listen, I've looked at this receipt 100 times. I can tell you that there's no generator on this receipt. But let me tell you what is on the receipt, and I'll tell you why you need to know. So this receipt has a bunch of charges for light switch plates, screws, joint compound, dimmer switches, shelf brackets, a glass fitter, whatever that is, I don't know. So why do I bring that up? Because part of my investigation, I look at people's social media accounts, because that's where they tell the whole world about their private lives, okay? So on Ulrich's social media account, there were pictures. Why don't we pull up those pictures? Charging party 58. There's one, 59. There's 2, 60. There's 3. So let me tell you what these pictures are, because I asked about them and Ulrich confirmed. These are pictures that show he was renovating bathrooms in Kimberly Lenz's house. And he said the renovations were ongoing. And as part of renovations, what do you need? Joint compound, light switches, you name it. So he didn't have an explanation as to why everything on the receipt tended to fit right into this perfect picture of that he was renovating bathrooms. Please, why don't you hold off, because you got to hear all the evidence before you make a decision. And whatever your decision is, it has to be personal. You don't have to share it with everyone else publicly. Okay? So Ulrich claimed that he didn't use union funds to buy any of the materials for the bathroom. Here's what he said originally to me, under oath. He testified that he himself used the credit card of the local at Home Depot to purchase the generator. He didn't know when I asked that question that I had the receipt. He thought nobody had the receipt. So when I showed him the receipt, I said, where on the receipt is the generator? I must be missing it. So then he came up with a great excuse. Even I had to say it was a good story. He then said on that particular day, he made 2 purchases. One using the union credit card and a second one for cash. And it just so happened he bought the generator for cash. So it doesn't appear on the union credit card. He didn't explain, though, why he reimbursed the union for the generator and not for all the stuff he used to renovate the bathrooms. I asked Ulrich, in fairness, as I do everyone, to go obtain a copy of that receipt for the cash purchase, because it could have happened, who knows, I wasn't there. He never produced the receipt. Now let's go to charging party 42. You with me so far?
Yeah.
Come Come on, you with me? Okay. So, this wasn't the only charge. We're not going to jump on somebody for one charge. People make mistakes. So I found that there was another charge. You see this little Kmart charge there? For $271.28, if my eyes don't. So I found that on April 3rd, 2015, he made another charge on his Union credit card at Kmart. So, deposed Ed Weber, he testified that Ulrich never gave him the receipt for this Kmart charge. Ed Weber, as he should have done as the supervising officer of the local, asked Weber for a copy of the receipt. And he first asked him what it was for. So Ulrich told Ed Weber that he bought a printer for the Political Action Committee, the PAC. Ed Weber then told John Ulrich, as he should have, that you can't use union funds for any kind of PAC activity. So Weber then told Ulrich to bring him the printer and bring him the receipt. So what happened was Ulrich did bring Ed Weber something, but he never brought him the receipt. But then let me show you what he did. Charging Party 61. He tendered another check. He tendered a check. The amount is $290. But here's the keys, guys. Credit card, Kmart, PAC printer. So just like the Home Depot, he tenders a check when he's questioned about the particular item that the local is questioning about. So then what happens? We obtain a copy of the receipt. This isn't hard, right? Even Perry Mesa could figure this out. Charging Party 62. There's the receipt from Kmart. All right? So if you look at all of this stuff, you will see there's no printer up there. He didn't buy a printer at Kmart, which should, if you're paying attention, lead to the next question. Why the hell did he give us a check for the printer when he never bought the printer? Okay? So I want to show you what he did buy. All right? This item right here, CHCC1 combo for $29.99. You see that? Go to Charging Party 63. So look what CHCC1 is. Look at that. A Conair combo. Great, I got one just like that in my house. Okay? So again, it ties back to the bathroom renovations, right? You can start to connect the dots here. So let me tell you that he denied that he purchased this for renovations in his house. I want to be fair to him. But then I asked him about another item. Can you go back to that receipt, Jim? 62, right? Okay. So the other item I asked him about, because I like to educate myself, I'm always curious, was this scratch Denny for $9.99. Like, I was really curious about what the hell is scratch Denny. I didn't know what the hell that was. So I asked him about the scratch Denny. Can we go to Charging Party, I think it's 64. There it is, as seen on TV, Scratch Denny. So, let me tell you what Scratch Denny is, because I didn't know. Scratch Denny is a substance you use when you're detailing boats and cars, okay? Now, Ulrich testified under oath that his son runs a boat and car detailing business. So there it is, Scratch Denny. Now, what does that receipt show? Can we go back to 62? So here's what he bought. Here's what he bought. He bought a microwave. He bought ramen noodles. He bought a wall plate. He bought a 4-pack of wine, ketchup, some clothes.
So he got laid.
This is really cool too. Pay attention. Pay attention. He bought a fighting figure. He bought a toy.
He got kids.
On your money. This is union money he's using to buy.
Show everybody.
why do you explain this receipt once I show it to you? There's an explanation for everything in life, guys. I've learned that doing hundreds of investigations. So here's what he said. He said that this purchase was a mistake. No. He said that his girlfriend had the Union credit card, and it looked like her credit card, so she made the purchase by mistake. That's what he said. He said she made the purchase by mistake. I asked him if he was with her when she made the purchase. He didn't really know. He didn't know about that. And then he said, but once he did know, he reimbursed the Union for what was on the receipt. So then I said to him, well, why didn't you just reimburse them for all these personal items? Why'd you reimburse them for a printer that you didn't buy to begin with? So there was no excuse for that. But I submit to you the fact that people are giving checks to the Union for stuff that's not even there indicates some motive to perhaps cover up. All right? So now on 3 other occasions, using that Union credit card, Ulrich paid for in-town hotel stays for himself. Now, Ed Weber testified, and a number of other local officers told me as well, that the Union does not authorize in-town hotel stays, and by the way, they're not allowed to. That's the policy across the country, unless it's a real unusual circumstance. So, let's go to charging party 48. Oh, there it is, okay. Yeah, that's why the X is there. Okay, so there it is. Hampton Inn, 243-33 on May 15, 2014. That date's crucial, watch. Watch why that date is important. So I showed him this charge for the hotel on May 15, and he admitted he made it, and according to Ulrich, he was organizing at that time on May 15. I'll give anybody $100 if you can guess what company he was organizing. Hey, Phoenix Lobo, okay? Now, May 15, 2014, there just so happened to be a general membership meeting on the same day. Can you pull up charging party 65? So go to roll call. So there's the roll call of the officers for May 15th. You'll see the date over there, okay? All Union officers, business agents, directors were present except John Ulrich. I'll show you why he wasn't present in a second, okay? So on the same day you had the membership meeting, and the same day he stayed at that hotel, he sent an email to the E-Board stating that he probably couldn't make it to the membership meeting because his son had a doctor's appointment. Can you put up charging party 71? So there's the email, again, from John U, IBTA 12. You can see it's to the executive board. Why don't you go to the next page? Oh, by the way, go back. So he says here in the email that his son Matthew has to go to a hand specialist today, the orthopedic, whether he's going to have hand surgery. That's really none of our business, so I don't want to get into that. Go to the next page. Can you pull it down? So he says, depending on what time we get out of the specialist today, I will let you know. I will send you the minutes and the agenda this morning just in case he can't make it. Okay? So, during the deposition, Ulrich claimed that he did not miss the membership meeting because of his son's doctor's appointment. He said that he missed the membership meeting because he went to a Phoenix organizing event after the doctor's appointment, and that he stayed in the hotel in Staten Island. By the way, this Hampton Inn is in Staten Island, because the organizing meeting went late and he was tired. So I asked him why he stayed in Staten Island, and he said that it was because it was on his way home. Now, for those of you who know him, he lives in Newburgh. So I don't know how Staten Island is on the way to Newburgh, but certainly not by the way I drive.
Traffic.
Okay? So there's two other hotel charges on here for in-town hotel stays. I can show them to you if you want. I don't see the need. You know, you've been sitting a long time, but let me tell you what they are. I can put them up if you want. Okay? Put up charging party 52, Jim. On November 22nd, 2013, he spent $161.86 of union money by staying at the Best Westin. It's probably on here as Adria. There it is, up here. So that's the holding company for the hotel, but it's the Best Westin, all right? So he spent more money there. The actual hotel receipt is at 74. Can you pull up 74? See, Best Westin, Bayside, there's the amount. So now you see how I put these things together. I check the charges, I look for the receipts, I draw the dots. So I asked him why he stayed at an in-town hotel. He said because he was involved in organizing, he was tired and he needed to be in the area. There was another charge on December 13, 2013 for $157.23. We're not going to pull that up. But let me tell you what he said. When I asked him about that charge, which he admitted, he said he stayed at that hotel on the night of the locals' Christmas party because he was intoxicated and didn't want to drive home. Now, Ulrich admitted that the local didn't have a policy, a written policy, about in-town hotel stays. But he said you could do it if you were tired or if you felt it was too much to drive home. No other union officer confirmed that policy. And by the way, if that policy existed, it would result in a charge because it is not permitted under union rules. You can't do it. Lots of people in this country have been charged with doing that. Now, there's another charge for December 13th, same day, on his card for $147.75 at Burton and Doyle's. Burton and Doyle's, you may know, is a restaurant that used to be down the block from the local. So, when I asked Ulrich about that charge at Burton and Doyle's, he said that it was for Phoenix negotiations. That he was having negotiations at Burton with some Phoenix people and he picked up the tab. I then reminded him that December 13th was the holiday party for the local. And then he changed his story. He changed the story and he said, oh yeah, I forgot. He said, what I did was we had a party, the local had a party and they picked up the tab. The tab included some meals and a drink or two. And that after the party, he stayed. He stayed at the bar and he drank with friends and he put it on his union credit card. He didn't have any problem admitting, by the way, that that was an improper charge. Okay? So he basically conceded. Now, here's the last area I'm going to get into, so I'm almost done. All right? The next area I investigated was a medical leave that he took. Now, under the local's medical leave policy for officers, if they're out on sick leave, they get full pay, full benefits, and their car allowance. Now, on July 2nd, 2015, there was an e-board meeting. And after the meeting, the e-board members were having a meal, and they received a text from John Ulrich. By the way, John didn't attend that meeting. So Ulrich told Weber and the other members of the e-board in the group text that he fell down the stairs in his house and he broke his leg and ankle, and he was kind enough to send pictures. 75 and 76, please. Okay, there's 75. Let's go to the writing. Fell and fractured my leg and ankle. How much more effed up can I be? Go up a little more, the next one. Go to the next one. Let's see the writing. Slipped, fell, tore the hell out of it. I do need one. Oh, I do need one. What he's making reference to there is a cast. Okay? They just kept it stable. Front fracture of tibia and ankle. Shaft fracture. I'm a complete idiot. Go back to the previous picture, please. Go down. So unless I'm wrong, that's his left leg, right? That's his left leg. I'll tell you why. That's going to be key in a second. Right? Now, Urick testified he didn't remember sending the text, but he remembers telling people that he was at the hospital getting x-rays. So from July 2nd, he went out on sick leave, and for the next 3 or 4 months, he collected his full salary, including a car allowance, while he sat home. And let me tell you where he was, okay? Now, on August 17, 2015, can you pull up Charging Party 77? On August 7, 2015, after Ulrich was out on sick leave for 6 weeks, Ed Weber, being the responsible union officer that he is, sent Ulrich a letter saying he needed some medical documentation for the injury. There's the letter, okay, to John from Ed. Now, he asked him to provide a letter stating what your condition was, whether he was capable of returning to work, and if not, the expected date of recovery. So Urick testified he received this letter, but he contended he wasn't out on sick leave because he was talking on the phone and answering emails. So his position was he wasn't out on sick leave. He was home injured, but because he was doing emailing and phones, that counted for full-time work. Now, Ulrich never provided the local any medical documentation in response to that letter. So on September 9th, 9 weeks after going out on sick leave, Weber called Ulrich and asked him about the medical documentation. The following day, September 10th, 2015, Weber sent Ulrich an email asking again for the medical documentation. Charging Party 78, please. Okay, so there it is. All right, can you move it up a little? It says, I hope you're recovering as per our discussion yesterday and the letter I sent August 17. The union needs, files, proof of disability from your physician. So remember what the date is on this, September 10th, okay? The dates are crucial. Now, in response, first of all, Urick testified he didn't remember receiving that email. But he claimed that he gave Ed Weber the medical documentation in person in August after he received that August 17th letter. Now, in response to this email, Ulrich finally produced some medical documentation. Charging Party 79, please. Can you go down a little? Okay, so it's from Crystal Run Healthcare, where apparently he gets his health care. It's addressed to him. It comes from a doctor. The doctor's name is screened out here for some reason. Let me tell you what his name is so you know I'm not making it up, because if I was going to make up a name, it wouldn't be this name. Waul Fakori, okay? So Dr. Fakori said in his letter that he had been treated for trauma with possible nerve damage with a hematoma. You know what a hematoma is? A blood clot, a black and blue. Okay? No mention in this letter of any breaks or fractures. Okay? So in addition to this, John gave us his medical records from Crystal Health Run. Can you turn to page 80, please? So here it is. John Ulrich, date of birth, I guess. Now, you see that date? Stop. 9/1/2015. Okay? So here it is. Here's the first page of the medical documents he gave us. Now, I don't know what happened when we scanned this, but... Okay, so right here, where you really can't read it, what that says is history of present illness. Okay? So then you say Ulrich slip, and it's blacked out. It's redacted. Okay? On the original, it's actually a black magic marker. Somebody took a black magic marker. and blacked it out. So it says Ulrich slipped and suffered a left pretibial laceration. A laceration's a cut, gentlemen. Doesn't say anything about any break. Now, the rest of it's hysterical if you pay attention. The patient's wound has completely healed. He's all better. He's all better, okay? But he comes in today, his left leg, with an exaggerated pain response to very light, soft touch. The doctor was basically saying he's faking with respect to the pain. An exaggerated pain response to very soft touch. So, I asked John, who blocked that out? And he said that he blocked it out, redacted it. I asked him why. He said because the doctor told him to, because it was nobody's business where he fell. So I asked John, why would you possibly block out where you fell? So John said, I didn't block out where I fell. What are you talking about? That's not what it says. So can you turn to charging party 82? So this is the same page. He gave us this, but he must have not known he gave it to us. Because look, history of present illness, you see the same thing, exaggerated pain, completely healed, same date, but now it's not redacted, it's not blacked out. Look what he blacked out. Mr. Ulrich slipped on a dock. He didn't fall in his house. Shame on him. He fell on a dock, okay? A dock where you put your boat, all right? Now I asked Ulrich if the day he fell at the dock was a work day, and he said he didn't know. But I checked. July 2nd, 2015 was a work day. He wasn't at work. I know it was a work day because I looked at the calendar, and the E-Board had a meeting. They usually meet on work days. So, let me tell you one other thing he said.
You gotta tell us one.
So in November 2015, this involves you. Ulrich returned to work and he attended a membership meeting. At the meeting, which was recorded, he told the membership he slipped and fell in his house and he broke his leg. You may remember, he was actually pretty clever at that membership meeting. He said, gentlemen, you haven't seen me. I want to dispel all the rumors. I wasn't attacked by a shark. I wasn't in Iraq fighting Al-Qaeda. He said a bunch of other stuff like that. So I asked him about his statement to you, and I said, why did you tell the membership that you fell and broke your leg in your house when you actually slipped on a dock? So he said to me, for the first time, that he actually fell twice. He fell once in his house when he broke his leg and his ankle, and then a few days later, he fell on the dock. Here's the problem with that story, if you have a bullshit meter, okay? What are you doing on a dock with your broken leg and ankle? But even if that's the case, and it could be, I'll give him credit, you got a cast on your left leg, gentlemen. You're not going to get a cut, and ladies, I'm sorry. You're not going to get a cut on your left leg if it's in a cast and you slip and you fall. So nowhere in the medical records does it say that he broke his leg. I asked him to give me a HIPAA release or to bring me proof that he broke his leg. He never produced it. He refused to give us the HIPAA release. One other individual I deposed in connection with this part of the thing was John Romano. I don't know if you know John, but he works for the Health Fund. Really nice stand-up guy. Oh, Jim, I'm sorry. All right. Let me make that correction now. So Jim actually testified. He was compelled to testify. He didn't testify willingly because John's his friend. So Romano said that he knew Ulrich for 19 years and that in the summertime they socialized 1 or 2 times a week. He said that they both have a boat in the same marina on the Hudson River in Newburgh, New York. Romano testified that Ulrich hurt his leg when he fell between the dock and his boat. Romano said that he didn't know anything about falling and breaking a leg in his house, And he also testified that during that summer, he never saw Ulrich with a cast on. Now, based on this evidence, and there's others, but I don't want to go into it, it's late, I drafted charges for the local to present against John, because that's what I do, gentlemen. Okay? He was charged with a number of things. All of the things I just went over with you, and some additional stuff as well. So John contended that he couldn't get a fair shake before the executive board. For some reason or other, he thought people were out to get him. But I don't know how people invented this amendment, the participation agreement, went back 3 years and faked his credit card charges, and then got to his medical records. I don't know who did that, but clearly they were as good as Houdini. So John asked for a hearing before the Joint Council, neutral territory, I take it. And it is neutral territory. That's why that provision exists in the Constitution. So on the day of the hearing, I was there, I testified. John didn't show. He didn't show. He didn't show to present any evidence to refute these charges. His lawyer didn't show up either. He contended he was sick and he asked for an adjournment. But listen, I go to court every day. When my clients are sick, I appear and I tell the judge, they're sick, can we adjourn? That didn't happen. So the Joint Council heard the evidence, saw the exhibits, much more than I showed you tonight, heard from some other people like Ed Weber, and the Joint Council found him guilty of all the charges. So just let me, without putting it up there because it's late, let me tell you what the Joint Council said. The Joint Council found that the evidence, I quote, was overwhelming and indisputable to support the charges that he changed the contract, drafted a participation agreement on his own, embezzled, and then faked an injury so he could be on sick leave. One final thing I want to tell you about in 30 seconds, and then I'm going to hand the microphone over to Walter King. So, whenever I do these investigations, something unexpected always comes up, inevitable. So I'm not a guy that's easily surprised. I'm pretty jaded. I was very surprised in this case. Let me tell you what happened. So as part of my investigation, I ran a background check on John. I do it on a lot of people, not just him. I keep private investigators very busy. So as part of my background check on John, I noticed that he had, and he posted these on his Facebook page, 2 Corvettes. He had a number of other cars, and more significantly, he had a boat. A very big, expensive boat that cost, based on my research, between $75,000 and $100,000 used. So my background check revealed that he was basically broke. He didn't have any money in the bank. He didn't have any significant assets. So based on my assessment, I immediately thought he was living beyond his means, and I wondered how that was possible. So I wasn't necessarily looking at that, but it was a thought in the back of my mind. So later during the course of this investigation, right at the tail end, when I was just about done and out the door, I got a call from somebody at Crossroads. Everybody know what Crossroads is? The third-party administrator, or the former third-party administrator for the Health Fund. They were there for years. So I got a call from somebody I know at Crossroads for many, many years. And I'll be very honest with you. I've represented Crossroads a number of times over the years in various things. Now, one of the things that's been posted on the internet was that I had a conflict of interest because I shouldn't have done this investigation because I had previously represented Crossroads, and Crossroads plays into this, and I'll tell you how in a second. So they contended that I represented Crossroads and I had sued the fund for $1 million. Where's the proof? Where's the proof? Show me some document that shows I sued the local or the fund. I'm telling you right now, I've done hundreds, if not thousands, of lawsuits. I've never sued a union local or a union fund because I'm a union lawyer. I never sued 812. And in fact, I worked with 812 and Crossroads to defeat lawsuits by hospitals. But let me tell you about what this person at Crossroads told me. The person called me and said, I hear investigating John, I need to tell you something. I said, what do you want to tell me? He said, well, for the last couple of years, 3 so years, John has been extorting me. I said, what? He said, yes. He's been making us pay him kickbacks because he threatened not to renew Crossroads' contract with the fund. Now, because I had previously represented Crossroads, I couldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. That would be a conflict. I can't investigate a former client. So what I did when I got that information, I immediately notified fund counsel because it really was a fund issue and not a local issue, and I was working for the local. So I handed that issue off to Walter Kane, and Walter was the point person on that, and I'll hand it over to Walter now. But thank you so much for your attention.
Hello, everybody. My name is Walter Kane, and my background's not as colorful as...
Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Let me move this up. My name is Walter Kane. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. My background's not as colorful as Roland's, but I want to tell you a little bit about myself. Some of you know me. I'm a union lawyer. I represent unions. 30 years ago, I was a truck driver. I drove a truck out of Hunts Point. Mark, now some of you guys work up in Hunts Point. I drove a truck for 5-6 years, and I left that job. I went back to school. I went to school at night. When I was 29, I went to Brooklyn Law School at night, and I came back to be a union lawyer because that's what I went to go to law school to do. I graduated. I spent 5 years at a big union firm, and then me and my current partner left that firm, and we formed Carey Kane, which is my firm. My name is Walter Kane, as you can tell, and we've had that firm now for about 12 years. I will say this about Roland. I know Roland professionally. I have the utmost respect. I think what was said about him was deplorable. I think that I refer, because I don't do criminal law, many of my referrals of kids who are getting in trouble, my friends' kids, or union guys who call me up and say, my son's going the wrong way, or my nephew's going the wrong way, I refer them to Roland. Because I know that he has a unique perspective, and he can maybe get to those kids in a way that a regular lawyer can't. And I would advise anybody here who is in that situation to use Roland, because I think there isn't many people out there who've done what he's done and seen what he's done. But anyway, as Roland mentioned, he called me. Now you should know that I was friendly with John, as I'm sure a lot of you were, right? And none of this was easy for me. I'm sure he represented many of you. You know him from meetings. Maybe he worked with you at your job. Maybe he was your business agent. But what happened here was not pretty. So Roland called me and told me what he had heard. He then told me that he had been reached out to by a lawyer by the name of Tom Thompson. I think some of you know who he is, who was representing Mr. Palucci from Crossroads. And that he had told him that Palucci wanted to confess what had happened. Now, prior to that, you have my... I know you guys have been here a while. Prior to that, on February 8th of 2016, right? I received a letter, and it was sent to Joint Counsel 16, George Miranda, and it was from Sloan, Stone, and Dolan. That was John's lawyer. Go to the next slide. Here it is, February 8th, Joint Counsel 16, my client, John Owen. Please go to the next slide. This recounts a meeting between John and Mr. Palucci that his lawyer, John's lawyer, is actually telling us about on February 8th. It says, on Tuesday morning, February 2nd, 2016, Mr. Ulrich received a telephone call from an individual named Pat Palucci, an employee at Crossroads Healthcare, the third-party administrator to local 812 Health and Welfare Fund. As you may know, Crossroads is adverse to the fund in litigation where it is represented by attorney Roland Ospina. Palucci asked Ulrich to meet him. Go to the next slide, please. This is the second page of that same email, the same letter. Go to the next one, please, because I gotta get it close. I'm hoping that people can read it. Please, dear, leave quiet. When Palucci appeared at the agreed-upon location, he appeared to be fidgeting with his cell phone and exited his car. He embraced Mr. Ulrich and asked him how he was. Ulrich replied, "Lousy. What can I do?" Palucci then said that he had learned that Larry DeBellis, one of local 812 board members, had been compelled to testify under oath to Mr. Acevedo in the Weber-orchestrated investigation, had allegedly testified that he had been accepting bribes from Crossroads. Palucci further stated that DeBellis had admitted how much he was getting and that Ulrich was involved. All of this was untrue. Now again, this is John's lawyer sent this letter to me, to other people at the union. Ulrich asked Palucci what he meant by all this, and in essence, Palucci responded, "John, I'm telling you to resign or Roland will have to bring criminal charges against you." When Ulrich asked for what, Palucci became angry, raised his hands, and said, "It's about us. We are done. We are finished." Mr. Ulrich initially believed this meant Crossroads was finished. But after several days of reflection, he is now not so sure. Now, go to the next slide, please. Now, that was February 8th. February 9th is when Roland called me and said that Tom Thompson had called him. Now, when we got the February 8th letter, I called Ed and said, "What is this? This is bizarre, but you should get a meeting together of the Health Fund trustees, and we should look at this and think about why John's lawyers." This is the first time after Roland's been investigating that the Health Fund is involved in anything. I was counsel to the Health Fund, and I had no part in the original investigation. So, that night, like I said, on February, I got the call from Roland that said to me he had gotten a call from Tom Thompson. I asked Roland to put in writing what Tom Thompson had told him. Roland said to me, "I'll ask Tom Thompson if he'll put in writing what his client Palucci told him." This is the letter from Tom Thompson the next day. Could you please go to the next slide? This is the up close of it. "My client, Mr. Pat Palucci, asked me to write this letter to you, the counsel for the local 812 Health Fund, to inform you and the fund trustees that approximately 3 years ago, Mr. Ulrich approached Mr. Palucci to demand that Palucci pay Ulrich quarterly payments of $5,000 or risk losing Crossroads' account with the fund. Fearing the loss of this long-standing client, Mr. Ulrich's demands were not met. Mr. Palucci agreed. Several quarters later, Mr. Palucci increased his demand by another $3,000 to $8,000 per quarter. Again, fearing for the loss of the fund account if he did not pay the increase, Mr. Palucci agreed. Recently, Mr. Ulrich contacted Mr. Palucci to demand that the quarterly payments be increased by another $3,000 to $11,000 so that the portion of the increase could be paid to Mr. Larry DeBellis." Now here's what I didn't know was coming. See copy of attached email. Go to the next slide. That's the email. You can see it's, there you go. From John, this is good to be here, Johnny OOO, Pat Palucci, Blend, 553. Go to the next slide. Oh, you gotta bring it down now. And the email says, "Pat, our friend LD is struggling at home. He needs help, he tells me. He asked me to ask you for 3 more than what he has already. I know he spoke to you already. I said I would ask you, but I don't want it to be just on you. I will do the right thing and have it come from me going forward. I do not expect his to be done today. It would only be going forward unless you want to start it now and have it come from the next one or future ones we do. He is good insurance for us. Thank you, and I'll call if you need to. See you this morning. The email came the day of a fund meeting where he was going to be. They were both going to be at the fund meeting. Now, at that meeting, the next day, after we received this, was the day that Ed called the health fund meeting for, okay? And that was the morning now of February 10th. You follow it? Right? That's the 9th. The 8th was the original letter from his lawyer. The 9th, we received this later. The next day, the 10th, we have a health fund meeting to look into this matter. On the morning of the 10th, right, that meeting was held in my office. John and Larry attended that meeting by phone. They asked and we allowed them to attend by phone. Because I got the earlier meeting, this email on the 9th, I had not given it to anybody until the morning of the meeting. And my secretary, my associate emailed it to Larry and to John. And then we went over it. And I said to John, we have this letter. Oh, he's making it up. Thompson's crazy, he hates me. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. But what about this email? He says, oh, I don't recognize that address. But then I started to read it to him. I said, well, let me read it to you. It says, Pat, our friend is struggling. Oh, I know what that's about. That's about Jet, PLA tickets to Jet games. Right? So, okay. John, tell me how our friend is struggling at home relates to Jet tickets. He needs help, he tells me. What does that have to do with Jet tickets? And now, I'm going to tell you something. Like I said, I knew John. I went into my partner's office before that meeting and I said, I hope this email isn't John's. And I hope that there's some explanation for this. And I'm going to give him every single courtesy. And anybody who was in the meeting knows, your entire board was in there, and I had 3 of my other lawyers, because I don't walk into this kind of stuff that often. I had 3 other lawyers from my office who will all tell you, I treated him with respect. I tried to say, John, you have to understand what we're looking at here. I will do the right thing and have it come from me going forward. Again, how does that relate to a Jet ticket? Just tell us. And the last, but not least, after I went through these, he is good insurance for us. Is there any possible way, do you remember, you wrote this, you say it's yours. They just, I don't know, I don't remember. Now, after this meeting, and it's been reported that I've done things for individuals here. I'm going to tell you, I didn't do anything during the entire time for any individual. I told the entire board on the morning of this meeting that if you were involved in anything that is criminal, or that is, I am not your lawyer. I am representing the fund, and if you've got a problem, you should go and get yourself a lawyer, because I'm not the one who handles it. You need more help than I'm giving you, and I'm in charge of the fund. And I had them all sign retainers, separate retainers, bringing me in to do this, okay? Now, what I did do after this, go to the next slide, is this is an email from my associate, Shanice Franklin, and it went out the same day, February 10, 2016 at 4 p.m. Go to the next email. And it says, my boss, Walter Klain, explained to me earlier today, we have reason to believe, based on the attached, that there is corruption involving local 812 Health Fund and a former trustee of a third-party vendor. As explained, we were notified that John Owen, former trustee, was removed this morning, and possibly Mr. Larry DeBellis, former trustee, also removed this morning for receiving kickbacks from Pat Palucci of Crossroads Healthcare Management for about 3 years. This morning, after meeting with the Health Fund trustees, we have contacted the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, the Independent Review Board, who, as you guys know, is the court-appointed monitor that oversees the Teamsters, the U.S. Attorney's Office, who I spoke to personally, who contacted OLMS, another division of the Department of Labor, so that they could coordinate whatever was going on, whatever they had to, if they decided to do an investigation. Yourself and Alyssa Goldberg. Now, this was the same day as the meeting. At the meeting, after John couldn't come up with an explanation, and we gave Larry a chance to say, what do you know about this? Larry first said, I don't know anything about it. And then John said, well, you knew about the jet tickets. And he said, well, I never got nothing. That was his answer. Despite what he was looking at, we gave him every opportunity to say, hey, are you in this or you're out? He never got out. So, go to the next slide. This is the second letter from my associate Elise Goldberg at EPSA, and it's, go to the following slide, it's the same letter basically that says to another agency that we are doing what we're supposed to do. When we find corruption, whether it's in a union or in a fund, we don't have prosecutorial power. Our job is to eliminate, your board's job is to eliminate the person who is involved in the alleged corruption by firing them, which they did, terminating the two of them, and taking them off as trustees of the benefit fund, which was done that morning in that meeting. Now, we then contacted all the authorities. Go to the next slide. Now this, slide down again. This I also did that day, which, could you slide it down so you see the top? No? Yeah, that's my letterhead. This is Michael DeBartolone, president of Crossroads. Scroll up, there's another, you can go to the next slide so that people can see it. I try to do this again for each slide. As you should be aware, Pat Bellucci has admitted taking kickbacks to two trustees of the local A12 Health Fund. In light of this, the fund must terminate its relationship with Crossroads effective June 1, 2016, pursuant to Section X of the fund's Administrative Services Agreement. With Crossroads, the fund trustees asked we provide 90-day termination notice. So we fired them right away. Your health fund claims are inside the fund, right? So we've got to be a little smart about it because they've got all the paperwork, right? So what we've told them, you're now terminated. We need 90 days to get your replacement. But Crossroads will continue to process the claim so that your claims would get paid. And the operations terminate. Mr. Bellucci, however, cannot be permitted to participate in any operations, claims processing, or other matters involving or related to the fund. In addition, if Mr. Bellucci is an authorized signatory on any accounts containing fund monies, his authorization is revoked immediately. Again, that was all done on the same day. Now, what John and some others have said is that what I just described to you never occurred, right? He denied that the email was his after he said it in front of 10, 12 people, including 3 lawyers from my office and your board. Now, go to the next letter. I'm going to try and get through that again from his lawyer, dated March 21, 2016. And it says our client, it's written to the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. Go to the next slide. The next slide is again. Here it says, he's trying to defend John about what actually occurred. He says the only evidence presented at the meetings, however, was a letter written by Tom Thompson. By the way, if somebody's lawyer represents that they committed a crime, that's a pretty good piece of evidence because the lawyer is your agent, right? Counsel for Mr. Bellucci, accompanied by an incomprehensible email that was alleged to corroborate these charges, but which we now know did not come from Mr. O. So now he says, it's not his email. Go to the next slide. And this is the second page where it says, an opportunity to review the supposedly incriminating evidence, right? A phony email. Go to the next slide, please. That's his lawyer's signature on the document I just went through. Go to the next page, please. Here is John. Oh, by the way, February 10th, Roland did a better job of this than me. He practices in the court. But remember the day of the meeting, February 10th, correct? February 10th was the day that they met, and we confronted John in the meeting of the Board of Trustees, and then later of the union to fire John, right, and Larry. Now, this is February 16th, a couple of days later. He writes a letter to the Joint Council of 16 of the Teamsters, and this is the Secretary Treasurer of the Council. Go to the next slide, please. Okay, and this is the second page. Go to the next slide, because I blew it up again. And it says, the email, which appears to be dated September 17th, 2016, supposedly was sent to Palucci from a sender identified as Johnny O at the email address goodtobehere8174 at Yahoo. I have never heard of either, nor have I ever seen you use this email address. When asked during the February 10th meeting if I had sent the email at issue, I responded that I did not recall sending it, and I did not recognize the email address from which it was sent. In that same period, I had dozens of emails and text messages with Palucci, and I had never used and do not recognize that email address. I do not recall that I did recall that one of my sons goes by the name Johnny, but if I had seen an email prior to hearing, I would have been able to determine, as I have since confirmed, that the email address goodtobehere at Yahoo, 8174 at yahoo.com, had never been used by my son either. Indeed, a Google search yesterday of that username reveals its association with various salacious websites, including a profile at lesbianpersonals.com. I have never visited any of those sites. We're not getting into that tonight, but that's not true either. I have no idea who Johnny O or goodtobehere8174 at yahoo.com is, and did not send the email. That, with no other evidence, apparently was the basis for my termination. Now, John didn't just send this, he started to spread this around the local. Go to the next thing. That's John's signature on that letter. Go to the next. Now, we got a letter from a bunch of members who say, go to the next email, the next one, so I can blow it up to see what, go back, you missed one. Sadly, while this major violation was totally ignored by 812 trustees, the local 812 executive board and attorney Walter Kane somehow managed in less than 14 hours to conduct 2 meetings that lasted a total of 32 minutes, investigated and terminated 2 decorated union officers over a phony email from a disgraced, fired, prior local 812 attorney. Now, only one problem with all of this. Go to the next slide. This is John Ulrich, 812. On February 10th at 11:56, this is what? Right after our meeting, right? The one where he got fired, February 10th. This is before he's figured out that he can't take control, that he can't say that this is his email. He writes to Barry Levy. You know who he is. He's the lawyer for the local. Go to the next letter. He says to Barry on that day, they fired me and Larry over an email. That I sent to Pat, where me and Pat had conversations about buying jet ticket PLAs. So it's his email. He knew it was his email the whole time. He then goes running around telling people, it's not my email, it is my email, it's not, tells unsuspecting people that this is all nonsense. That somehow this whole thing was created by Tom Thompson. Right? That's what he told people, and where am I now? Sorry, right? Now, here's where it gets a little tricky. This is what happens. Now, give me a few more minutes. I'm almost done, and I know you've been sitting, and I appreciate it. At that point in time, a little while later, I said to the guys, remember now, Roland's got one set of charges, all the things you heard about before, right? And I have this charge, the kickback, right? So I say to the boys, attach that to the joint council charge and let the joint council hear the both of them. When I do that, I send the authorities that the letter that goes to the council. I get a call from Charlie Carberry, who is the chief investigator for the IRB, and he tells me, no, they can do the others, but this is criminal. U.S. Attorney, us, we'll figure it out. You do not proceed with kickback charges. So we withdraw the charges. Those, now, it's been said that that never happened. And I never did that. Go to the next. Here's a letter from my office on July 27, 2016 to Mr. Carberry. Go to the next email. I write to him, the bribery charge filed with Joint Counsel 16 will withdraw at your request to allow the IRB exclusive jurisdiction to investigate the matter. The fund, the Joint Counsel have taken no action to investigate the charges in the 5 months since your request. And then I talked to him about the fact that at the unemployment hearing for John, Ulrich's attorney asserted the union never actually referred these bribery charges to the IRB, and that the IRB did not ask the union to withdraw the charges. Now, go to the next. Oh, go back. Now, I'm telling you that this is the evidence that we were faced with. Now, you have to believe that Paolucci made this all up, that he threw himself into the fight, lost his account, he lost his job, right? He's facing criminal prosecution, right? That he made all of this up for no reason. Go to the next one. Now, a little while later, on that same week, February 10th, 15th, from Blending, remember that was the same email that he was using with John. Paolucci writes to us, corroborating now that this is not just a lawyer, and that he, in fact, this is what we know he sent to us. It's the email he always used with us. Dear brothers Ed, Joey, John, Jimmy V, and Angel, I will delete your phone numbers and emails following this one last message. I must tell you that I was the proudest man representing the local 812 Health Fund for the past 22 years. I am hysterical crafting this message, as it is now a reality that I will no longer have the opportunity to serve you and your members. I leave in shame and disgrace, something that I never would have expected because of my inability to trust that the account was safe from termination. I will soon be responsible for the loss of many good jobs held by wonderful people. These are people at Crossroads because of the size of the account. I have decided to resign by week's end. It's over. This opportunity was my prized possession, and I fucked it up. As Walter put it, dishonest. Be well, Pat Paolucci. That's it. I gotta tell you, this is not it's not funny. It's not, it's not something that I never wanted to see this happen. I represent unions. I know you guys do. We do a million great things, right? These are some of the best institutions. I grew up in a union house. My father's a union. I think you guys know that. I mean, that's why this breaks my heart. It breaks everybody. I know it breaks your heart, but I'm telling you that I never, and the board never, acted in their own self-interest throughout these investigations. We contacted the authorities. We did, when we were given the evidence, we right away moved on it. And that's all I can tell you. And thank you very much for your time.
Guys, I thank you, Walter and Roland. Appreciate your time coming out here tonight. Just a few words from Joby.
All right, guys, we're going to do the raffle and stuff. Just a couple of things. Tonight you got the whole story regarding the board's executive board's decision and obligation to remove John and Larry. John was my friend. I was the one who put John in the union when he was a driver at 7-Up in the union. When Walter says we are heartbroken, we are heartbroken. All of us are. I believed that John would take the position to lead this union going forward. It was a great disappointment. And really aged me a little more. I know I'm being called an old man, but that was some of the stuff that really hurt us. This was not something that we are proud of. This is not something that we looked forward to doing. Tonight was not something that I ever imagined should or would have happened, but we felt it was an obligation to let you know the steps that the board took. Now, this executive board will move forward, and we will have done, like we've done in the past. We'll continue to represent our members, we'll continue negotiating contracts, and we will continue to run the funds. And we hope we can put this behind ourselves. We hope we can unite together to keep this union strong. Okay, just one other thing I have to say. There's been some questions. Every year we get these questions when the pension notice comes out. Okay, and I've had some questions, and everybody gets nervous when they hear about critical zone and the whole bit. All right, what the board is going to do, we're trying to put it together now with some of the professionals, is that if we can get it done by the January meeting, we're going to bring in the actuaries, we're going to bring in the accountants to a general meeting. We're going to dedicate some time to let you know what the trustees are doing and how we're moving forward to move the fund out of critical status, which it will move out of critical status. Walter is, the fund also represents the fund there. So that's something else we're going to do. All right? Like I said, I appreciate your patience tonight. I appreciate that you all, no matter what side you're on, you gave your attention. We conducted ourselves the way A12 has always conducted itself, and I appreciate it, and I thank you on behalf of the executive board. $25 gift certificates. I'd like to call for a motion to adjourn. A motion, second. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, guys. All right, we're going to hang around. We got a couple of raffles going on. So tonight we're giving out